In the ancient tales of the Slavic world, the forest is not just a collection of trees, but a living character, a breathing entity, existing on the border between our world and another. It is a place with a deep shadow and an even deeper memory, where the natural laws of reality begin to erode, and those laws start to collapse. Those who have lost their way or have despaired, or even those brave enough to seek within it, may find things that should not exist. You walk for days, leaving everything familiar behind until the path completely disappears, and the sounds of human life vanish into a deadly dark silence, broken only by the snap of a branch underfoot or a whisper of the wind that sometimes seems to call your name. It is here in the heart of this deep forest where you might find her home. But you will not find her easily. First, you will find her house. It is a small wooden hut, precariously standing on a pair of giant chicken legs covered in scales. These legs never rest, for the house itself can walk, run, and sometimes spin in frantic circles as if it has a will of its own. Surrounding this house is a fence made of human bones, atop whose post skulls sit, their eye sockets glowing with a strange inner fire in the dark night. Approaching this house is a ritual in itself. One cannot simply walk toward it. The door twists and writhes, and you must know the secret words and the right spells to stop it. As you approach, the hut turns its door toward you, saying, "Oh hut, turn your back to the forest and face the visitor." Only then does the house stop moving, and the two large legs bend to the ground to grant you entry. And who is the lady of this impossible house? She is a monster who sharpens her teeth on stone, devouring lost children. But she is also a wise woman who offers magical gifts that might save an entire kingdom. She is a witch who commands the elements, guardian of the waters of life and death, soaring through the sky on a giant. Mortar she uses as a rudder, cleaning its traces with a broom made of silver birch wood. For centuries, one name has haunted the forests of Eastern Europe, Baba Yaga. But is she truly evil, or a helper, or a neutral natural force as dangerous as the forest itself? To find the answer, we must do what heroes of old myths do: be brave, respectful, and knock on her door, the door. To truly understand the mystery of Baba Yaga, we should not look at the forest or the situation alone, but also focus on those who possessed enough courage or despair to embark on that adventure and seek help. Among all the heroes in the ancient tales, there is no character more famous than a little girl named beautiful Vasilisa. Her story begins, as with many other tales, with a final gift her mother gave her before she passed away. In her farewell moments, Vasilisa's mother gave her a small magical doll and advised her to take good care of it. She said, "My little one, always feed this doll, and consult it whenever you face difficulty or trouble, for it will stand by your side and help you." This doll was more than just an ordinary toy. It was a manifestation of Vasilisa's intuition and the wisdom she inherited from her mother, a deep connection linking her to the maternal and spiritual thread. After her mother's death, Vasilisa's father remarried a cruel, domineering woman full of jealousy who had 2 daughters from a previous marriage. The stepmother and her daughters bore feelings of envy towards Vasilisa because of her beauty and kind spirit, and they treated her with relentless cruelty. They forced her to do all the hard household chores, trying to exhaust her and extinguish her inner light. But despite all this torment, Vasilisa did not lose hope. Every night, she shared little pieces of her food with her small doll and spoke to it about her feelings and worries. Unknown to everyone, the doll would come to life, comforting her and magically helping her accomplish impossible tasks while she slept. It would remove weeds from the garden, carry water, and kindle the fire in the stove, all without anyone seeing. Thus, despite the harshness of the circumstances and her family, Vasilisa endured, and her beauty grew brighter and clearer. But the wicked stepmother, who could not bear to see Vasilisa thrive, devised an evil plan to get rid of her. The family was moved to a small isolated hut on the edge of a deep, dark forest, a forest known to be the domain of the mysterious witch Baba Yaga. One autumn night, the stepmother extinguished all the candles and lamps in the house, leaving them in complete darkness, and coldly said, "We have no fire tonight. One of you must go to the neighbors and ask them to light the house." The whole family feared the only neighbor, the mysterious witch, and the two stepsisters refused the task with great fear and reluctance. Thus, the burden fell on little Vasilisa, who was told this task was a disguised death sentence in the form of a household chore. Vasilisa placed her magical doll in her pocket, relying on it for comfort and support, and set out alone into the haunted forest on what seemed an impossible mission. Vasilisa walked through the night, stepping confidently deeper into a forest that grew darker and more dense, until the darkness seemed thicker than ever before. The forest was eerily silent, as if it guarded its secrets in complete stillness. It seemed to her that the ancient tree branches stretched toward her as if watching, while strange unknown sounds echoed around, intensifying her fear and awe. Yet Vasilisa did not lose her courage, for she trusted completely the magical doll she carried in her pocket, the doll that was her source of comfort and support on this difficult journey. The doll guided her steps and kept her on course, helping her stay on the right path. With the break of dawn the next day, she continued walking, and as the second night in the forest arrived, she began to feel closer to her goal. The forest here felt different, deeper, and older, filled with a powerful and unsettling presence. The air was charged with a strange energy that seemed to roar in her ears, as if something was watching and surrounding her. At that moment, Vasilisa witnessed the first great secrets of this strange world. Suddenly, a knight appeared, running swiftly before her. He wore a completely white outfit, and his face shone and glittered as if he carried the very light of dawn. He rode a pure white horse that gleamed in the darkness of the night. As the white knight passed by, the pale gray light of dawn began to seep through the forest trees, casting shadows across the place. Vasilisa was awestruck by the scene but did not stop. She pressed on with determination. Later in the day, as the sun rose high and shone with golden rays, another knight appeared. He wore entirely red clothes, and his face was glowing red, radiant with the power of the sun at its peak. He rode a red horse shining under the sunlight. When the red knight passed, it seemed as if the sun itself blazed at its brightest at midday. Here, Vasilisa realized something important. These were no ordinary passing knights, but that she was entering a different realm, a world where the fundamental forces of nature manifested physically and tangibly. As evening approached, she finally reached her destination, the mysterious clearing. There she saw Baba Yaga's strange hut, the one that seemed impossible to exist in our world, surrounded by a fence made of glowing bones. At that moment, the third and final knight appeared. He wore all black clothes, his face dark as shadow, riding a jet black horse that slipped between the trees like darkness in the night. The Black Knight rode directly through the gates of the hut and vanished. Once the night disappeared, utter darkness settled over the place. The deep gloom engulfed everything around Vasilisa, leaving only the faint light emitted from the glowing eyes of the skulls on the bone fence. The doll in her pocket trembled, as if feeling both fear and tension. Vasilisa had just witnessed a terrifying moment. She saw Baba Yaga, devoted servants, leave the place on that day, which combined the rising of the red sun and the depth of the black midnight. The being Vasilisa had come to see was not merely a woman who controlled a small hut in the forest, but a creature with power over time itself, its shifts and changes. Vasilisa entered the hut trembling with terror and astonishment, finding herself in a strange and wondrous place, completely different from what she had expected. The hut's interior was much larger than it appeared from outside, yet it was a gloomy place, radiating a clear atmosphere of threat. The air was heavy, saturated with the scent of strange herbs and other mysterious things. filling the place with an aura of mystery and dread. The place pulsed with something mysterious and human-like, unfamiliar, carrying within it a secret difficult to comprehend. Vasilisa looked around with wide eyes and saw a large dark hearth standing in the corner, and a carefully arranged table as if preparing for something. But the strangest sight was 3 pairs of disembodied hands moving through the air, acting as invisible servants, completing tasks quickly and efficiently without any visible bodies. Suddenly, the air howled loudly, and Vasilisa heard the forest trees groaning as if warning of an approaching presence. The yard filled with a great noise as Baba Yaga returned to her home. She landed firmly on the ground, sharply inhaled the air, then shouted in a strong, piercing voice, "I smell a human. Who's there?" Vasilisa immediately remembered her doll and, speaking with the doll's advice in mind, stepped forward steadily, bowed respectfully, and answered with complete respect. Though her voice did not tremble for a moment, "It is only me, grandmother. My stepsisters sent me to ask for fire." Baba Yaga stared at Vasilisa with eyes full of anger, her terrifying eyes glowing like embers. She said in a majestic voice, "I know your stepmother," then added threateningly, "Very well, you shall have what you ask for if you can. You will stay here and work for me. If you complete all that I demand from you, you will receive what you came for. Otherwise..." She smiled a dreadful smile, revealing her teeth sharp as knives, and said, "Then I will eat you." The next morning, Vasilisa began her first impossible tasks. Assigned by Baba Yaga, she had to sweep the entire yard and clean the hut from its highest ceiling to its corners. She had to cook dinner, but the truly impossible task was to separate a bushel of wheat, grain by grain, from a large pile filled with dirt and mixed poppy seeds. She was expected to finish all these tasks before Baba Yaga's return in the evening. When the witch arrived at sunset, she left Vasilisa alone and looked at the mountain of grain still unsorted, and her heart filled with despair and anxiety. The task was truly impossible. Tears began to flow, but she soon remembered her mother's precious gift. She took the small wooden doll out of her pocket, placed a small crumb of bread in front of it, and told it about the predicament she was in and the difficulty of the task awaiting her. The doll's eyes seemed to glow with a faint light. Then she heard a soft voice whisper, "Do not cry, my little lady. Eat your dinner, pray, and go to sleep, for the morning is always wiser than the evening." Trusting her intuition and her doll's guidance, Vasilisa lay down on her bed and did as she was told. While she fell into a deep and peaceful sleep, the little doll rose from its place and began to work. It summoned ants, birds, and invisible creatures who were its secret helpers. Throughout the night, his little helpers carefully and meticulously sorted the large pile, separating the wheat from the poppy seeds and the wheat from the dirt, until 3 neat and clean piles formed. When Baba Yaga returned the next day, she was greatly surprised and simultaneously angry when she saw that all the tasks had been completed perfectly and completely. Despite her immense power, Baba Yaga was bound by ancient magical rules that prevented her from punishing the girl directly. However, she was not yet defeated. She still possessed enough strength to assign even harder and more impossible tasks for the following day. She was testing Vasilisa, pushing her to the limits of patience and endurance. Each night, a magical doll completed these impossible tasks, carrying them out with precision and magic while Vasilisa slept. The girl never saw how the work was done, but she trusted her inner intuition and the help of her doll. She would rest at night and wake each morning to find the burdens overcome and the ordeal that once seemed like a nightmare had passed. Eventually, Baba Yaga realized that her power had been surpassed and that a greater force protected Vasilisa. She murmured, "You have done your work as you should. Take the fire you came for." But she did not give it to her immediately. Instead, she first allowed her to ask some questions. Remembering her doll's wise advice, Vasilisa was cautious with her questions, focusing only on what she had seen outside the hut. She asked, "I saw a white knight. Who is he?" The witch replied, "That is my bright day." Then she asked about the red knights, and Baba Yaga explained, "They are my red son." Finally, she asked about the black knights, to which the witch answered, "They are the servants of my dark midnight." Then Baba Yaga turned her terrible gaze to Vasilisa and asked, "And why don't you ask about the things you saw inside my hut?" Vasilisa bowed her head and answered respectfully, "Because you, grandmother, said it is not good for those who know too much." This answer was proof of Vasilisa's respect for the limits of secret knowledge, which greatly pleased the old witch, as it was a sign that she had passed the final test, the test of wisdom. After completing all these trials, Baba Yaga's behavior changed. She was bound by the ancient laws of magic that govern hospitality and treatment. Finally, Vasilisa received her prize. The witch murmured, "You have asked enough. Take the fire you came for and go." Then Baba Yaga moved toward the frightening bone fence, removed one of the skulls, whose eyes glowed fiercely from a post, fixed it onto a staff, and handed it to Vasilisa. She said, "This is your light. Take it home." Vasilisa took the terrifying lantern, bowed one last time in a sign of respect, then turned to leave. As she walked away, she heard Baba Yaga's voice calling from behind her, "Well done, my little one. Be well." These were not warm blessings, but rather a hard truth from a power acknowledging the strength of another. Vasilisa walked back through the forest, but this time there was no fear in her heart. The path that had seemed so terrifying and filled with dark shadows had transformed into a beautifully lit way, thanks to the strange light emanating from the skull she carried. This light was unlike any natural light. It was a light from another world, a realm where magic and mystery intertwined. The ancient, tangled trees around her seemed to gradually retreat from Vasilisa's sight, as if the very darkness that once surrounded her began to fade and recede before the light of the skull. Yet Vasilisa wished to get rid of the skull, thinking it was the cause of all this terror, a heavy burden that must be cast away. But suddenly, a quiet voice whispered from inside the doll hidden in her pocket, "Do not throw it away, my little lady. You have earned it. Carry it." Vasilisa understood the meaning of these words. She was no longer just a frightened girl sent on a secret and difficult mission. She had now become a practitioner of magic, bearer of a mysterious and powerful magic. The power of justice had come from the land of the dead itself, a power granting her the right to protect herself and change her destiny. When she finally returned to the hut, her stepmother and stepsisters hurried to greet her. They told her they had remained without fire throughout her absence, unable to spark a single flame. At first, they felt relief when they saw the light Vasilisa carried, thinking their cruel plan had succeeded in another way. But as Vasilisa entered the hut, the burning eyes of the skull fixed upon the three wicked women. The glowing light from the hollow eye sockets stared at them like a living being pulsating with life. The light shone fiercely, filled with ancient intelligence and glowing wisdom, tracking every move made by the stepmother and her two wicked daughters. The three women tried desperately to flee and hide in the dark corners of the room, but there was nowhere to hide. The light followed them, its gaze burning with wisdom and power, scorching every hiding place they sought. It ignited in them an unbearable magical fire. By morning, nothing remained of the cruel stepmother and her wicked daughters, but a small pile of fine black ash. This was not a killing carried out by Vasilisa, but a just act performed by the supernatural force she had brought from the edge of the abyss, from another world. Having survived her ordeal and witnessed justice served, Vasilisa buried the skull in the garden so that it would harm no one else in the future. Since then, she left the cursed hut forever and lived a long, prosperous, strong, and independent life. She faced the great and fearsome mother of the forest and emerged from that trial not as a victim, but as a wise woman and a strong woman who possessed herself and her own power. And so ends the most famous tale of the beautiful Vasilisa, collected in the 19th century by the great Russian folklorist Alexander Afanasiev. It is a powerful story carrying within it meanings of quiet endurance and feminine intuition, alongside the justice of the other world that reveals its light in the darkest circumstances. However, it is important to remember that these old tales are not like modern novels written and published in fixed, unchanging forms. Rather, they resemble a great river, flowing through generations, fed by countless streams and tributaries branching from its main course. Vasilisa's story is no exception to this rule. In different regions of the country, we find other versions of the tale with entirely different characters. In some versions, the heroine is known as Vasilisa the Brave, a strong and independent woman whose will cannot be broken, skilled in many arts including rifle shooting, making her a sharp and experienced fighter capable of defending herself. In other versions, the kingdom is not won or ruled through the terrifying justice, represented by the skull, but rather through her unique and miraculous skill in weaving fabrics, producing extremely soft and beautiful cloth that attracts the attention of supernatural beings, or czars, granting her status and power in the world of myths. Despite these variations, what remains constant across all these stories is the essence of the journey, a perilous quest undertaken by a young girl to the realm of the great and fearsome witch. A journey that tests her, from which she flees, but from which she always returns stronger and wiser. This is the core of the story, the unchanging trial that reveals its ancient true purpose. Let us begin our exploration by looking at the most bizarre and memorable image in the myth, the impossible house standing on two giant chicken legs. This hut was a source of terror and fear for those lost or traveling through the forest, and few dared approach it. But to truly understand Baba Yaga, we must unpack the meaning of the place itself. The hut is not merely a physical structure. It is a profound symbol of strangeness, blending the local and the wild, the ordinary and the magical all at once. In the stories, the hut is considered a living, conscious being, capable of moving and running swiftly through the forest, or even standing still while spinning around in a dizzying circle. This is the first sign that the hero has left the ordinary world behind and entered a place where the usual laws of nature and reality no longer apply, a place that defies logic and time, and where a person embarks on a journey completely different from anything they know. Yet this strange conception may have very practical origins and roots, perhaps inspiring those mythical images, embodying the tension between nature and the uncanny, between the familiar and the unknown. The hut standing on giant chicken legs is not merely a figment of imagination, but has deep roots in human history. For many centuries, nomadic tribes in Siberia and northern Europe, especially the Sami and other Finno-Ugric tribes, built their food storages, known as ispushka, in a unique and distinctive way. These small storages were designed to protect their precious supplies from ground-dwelling animals and to keep them dry, away from the moisture caused by melting snow. They built these small wooden huts, windowless, on multiple levels, sometimes 2 or 3 floors, using rot-resistant tree trunks. To an unfamiliar observer, these cabins appear to stand on legs as the tree trunks form the base, and their intertwined and branched roots stabilize the structure, making it look like the feet of a giant bird. It is very likely that the mythical image of Baba Yaga's hut was inspired by these strange-looking real structures, representing a folkloric memory or legendary description of these distinctive nomadic huts. But in fairy tales and myths, the hut goes beyond being a clever storage place. It transforms into a living character and a magical guardian itself. The hut never allows any hero who approaches it to enter easily. Its door is always turned toward the deep forest. To enter the hut, the hero must know the secret, a magical phrase or spell proving their worthiness to come inside. When the visitor whispers the correct words, such as, "O hut, turn your back to the forest and face me," only then does the hut obey. With a deep wooden creak and a majestic groan, it turns itself on its large legs to face the visitor, then lowers itself to the ground, paving the way. This hut is not just a threshold or a dwelling, but the first trial the hero faces. It is the first guardian who decides who may confront his fearsome mistress, Baba Yaga, and who is forbidden. This reveals a deeper symbolic meaning for the hut. It represents a liminal space standing on the boundary between opposing worlds. It does not fully belong here or there, but exists in that borderline realm between the world of the living and the world of the dead, known in Slavic folklore as the 10th Kingdom thrice over. The hut's strange ability to turn its back to the forest and face the hero is not merely a mechanical movement, but represents the turning of a key in a lock between two different dimensional planes. Entering Baba Yaga's hut is a voluntary decision to leave our natural world behind and cross a threshold into the realm of pure magic and spirituality, where time moves differently and where the spirits of the dead dwell. Therefore, the hut is not only Baba Yaga's residence, but a gateway to the supernatural world over which she holds dominion. Baba Yaga's strangeness goes beyond her impossible house to include the tools she uses in her magical practices. We have seen her wield a huge mortar and pestle and cleanse the traces of her steps with a magical broom. These tools may seem strange and perhaps amusing to some, but in truth, they are not random or meaningless. They carry deep symbols revealing other aspects of her ancient identity rooted in mythological heritage. But these objects are not merely random, meaningless tools. They carry deep symbolism and roots embedded in traditional human life. The mortar and pestle were essential tools in a traditional woman's life, used for centuries to grind grains into flour, process symbolizing the transformation of raw ingredients into sustaining food. This work reflects the concept of creation, nourishment, and domestic power, as food preparation has always been a symbol of life and survival. However, Baba Yaga takes these ordinary domestic tools and transforms them into something beyond mere utensils. She corrupts their original function. Her mortar is no longer just a tool for making food, but becomes an indestructible mortar used to grind the bones of her victims, and some tales embodying the wild local authority that breaks free from the confines of the home and unleashes a destructive and terrifying power upon the world. The broom also carries a dual meaning. On one hand, it is a simple household tool used for cleaning and tidying the home, but in Baba Yaga's hands, it becomes a mysterious magical instrument. Through the broom, she wipes away the traces of her footsteps, hiding her presence so thoroughly that it becomes impossible to track or locate her. This act enhances her status as a being not truly belonging to our world. She moves within it without leaving a trace, making her a secret guardian of the boundary, whose passage is revealed only to those she chooses to interact with. Her broom does not merely sweep away dust, it erases it, pushing her existence beyond the very fabric of reality. We have seen the terrifying fence surrounding Baba Yaga's Eddie's domain, a horrifying barrier built from the remains of those who failed her tests. But this fence is not just a decorative wall adorned with frightening shapes. It is a profound symbol, carrying within it a sign of the nature of the world she rules. The posts forming the fence are made of human bones. The gate is constructed from leg bones, and its lock is a jawbone lined with sharp, tool-like teeth. This all serves as a stark and clear declaration of Baba Yaga's power, both a warning and a prize, a threat and a promise. It tells any hero approaching this boundary that they are entering the realm of a being who does not see death as a tragedy, but as building material to be used. She is a being who holds absolute authority over the lives and bodies of those who enter her world, thereby dominating the entire place. At night, the only light emanating from the domain is from the skulls themselves, whose empty eye sockets glow with an eternal magical fire, illuminating the domain with a strange flickering glow that fills the place with an atmosphere of mystery and terror. This is precisely the light that Vasilisa was sent to retrieve, that light which emanates directly from the face of death. In many tales, these skulls take the shape of empty lanterns and warn Baba Yaga, his hero, not to fail in his impossible tasks, or else she will eat him and use his skull to complete her terrifying fence. Thus, the fence transforms from a mere simple warning into a direct personal threat, like a ticking clock measuring how close the hero is to becoming one of the horrifying lanterns in the witch's kingdom. Yet, in reality, the fence is not meant solely to keep people out, but is a symbolic boundary marker literally indicating the threshold of the land of the dead. Passing through this gate made of human bones represents leaving the world of the living and entering the underworld, a separate reality where Baba Yaga controls everything. Everything related to her realm, from the living guardian hut, to the strange tools she uses that defy their ordinary functions, to the fence separating life and death cements Baba Yaga's true role. She is not merely a witch dwelling in the forest, but a primal goddess, a cosmic force, the great and fearsome guardian of the threshold that separates our world from the other world.